Welcome in Geico Outkick Studios. I hope all of you are having a fantastic day wherever you may be across this great country or this great land. Last night, something happened that the Corona Bros told you wasn't going to ever happen. We had the kickoff of the NFL season, and for the most part, the game felt completely normal. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but first, we're in the Geico Outkick Studios. Do you know right now, Geico's offering an extra 15% credit on car, motorcycle, and RV policies? That's 15% on top of what Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th. Visit geico.com to learn more. Appreciate all of you. A lot of big takeaways last night. First of all, right off the jump, we had last night a football game in Kansas City with fans present and a football game in Miami for college football in the Major 5 Power Conference universe with fans present. If you had been told back in March when all of sports shut down and in April and in May when everybody was like, oh my God, there's no way we're going to be able to play the NFL. There's no way we're going to be able to play college football. Not only are we going to start the NFL and Major 5 Power Conference football in Kansas City and in Miami, but we are going to have fans present, you would have said no way. I actually think we're not just going to have fans present, but the number of fans present for games is going to continue to grow as we move forward in this process. And there are a lot of positives to take away from what we saw last night in terms of the return of sports and the return of normalcy in sports in general. So let's start here. I think there are many different ways that the opening game for the NFL could have gone. I thought last night, and I'm going to open up phone lines and get your feedback, I thought last night went as well as possible for the NFL. It felt as close to a normal game after the start of the game where there was a lot of attention played. But if you look at the field, for instance, the field looked completely normal. I know they have statements in the end zone, but it didn't take away from the overall normalcy of the way the game looked. The player names on the back of the helmet, whatever statements they're making about the social justice initiatives, you can barely see them. They're almost totally unrecognizable. It's nothing like the jerseys in the NBA. And so we start with off-the-field related concerns because that's what I think most people are going to react to. And I would say that the NFL is following the lead of Major League Baseball and the NHL much more than it's following the NBA. The NBA is going to be on a woke island with Black Lives Matter written on the court, with every player having social justice warrior slogans, and I was blown away with virtually every Kansas City Chief standing for the national anthem. Now, the Houston Texans elected not to come out of the locker room, and the Miami Dolphins actually released a pretty interesting video explaining why they wouldn't be coming out of the locker room. But the most intriguing part of this to me from a how long will this linger as an issue with fans is that there was no major explosive moment last night that took away your attention off the field. And what I've been told based on conversations I've had with people is ESPN, NBC, CBS, and Fox, after this week, they're not going to cover any of the anthem or any of the protests as part of their coverage of games. They're not going to show the national anthem. They usually don't. They won't be doing it going forward. So come Monday, we may have a lot of discussion about what other teams might do and how much of a moment of coverage and attention we're going to get for non-football related matters. But outside of the opening 20 minutes, which, again, the reason why I'm comparing it to Major League Baseball, for instance, is Major League Baseball, the opening night of the season, had a lot of different statements they made. Since that moment, it's been almost impossible to see Major League Baseball games as looking different other than without crowds present. For the NFL, for the most part, you don't even see the crowds in the stadium, but you could hear them and it felt normal. And if you had been in a time machine and you had just gotten to go back in time and it's in February and you get into a time machine and you suddenly advanced to Thursday night's game. You skipped everything between the time where there were no NFL games being played. And you got out of your time machine and you were just watching this game on television. For the most part, watching the game itself, it would have sounded and looked the exact same as many other games that you've watched in the history of your life. With the exception, sorry, Texans fans, it was like deja vu all over again with the Chiefs rolling out 31 straight unanswered points to take control of this game. So I thought this was a big win for the NFL, the way that this game came off. I know on Sunday there'll probably be some teams, Monday, that make aggressive gestures. But I even thought the Texans not being present for the national anthem and the Miami Dolphins, which I'd like to play their statement at some point during the course of the show if we can, and I'll play it for you, basically calling out what they said were empty gestures. And saying the time for empty gestures is over. I think most of the focus in the world of sports has been on empty political gestures. Now, a couple of other things. Some people are going to be talking today about the booing during the moment of unity. To me, that's pretty easy to explain. I think it was Chiefs fans booing Texans players for not coming out for the national anthem. And so I think that's going to be way overplayed by the woke media that's desperate to find something to try to make controversial about last night. I also think the First Amendment is a two-way street. We talk a lot about a player having the right to make a political statement. And the fans have a right to fire back at those political statements. There's a lot of people who want credit for speaking and then want to criticize others for speaking out about what they say. Well, that's how the First Amendment works. It's a two-way street. I say something, and all of you have the ability to react to it. And that's the same thing for fans. And remember, all this woke universe, it's been occurring without fans present. I think there would have been a lot of fans regularly booing the NBA if they were taking knees all during games with fans present. I think if the Milwaukee Bucks had suddenly decided not to show up for a playoff game because of what happened to Jacob Blake, there would have been rampant booing in the crowd because suddenly somebody would have walked out, gotten a mic, and told a sold-out arena, hey, the Bucks have decided not to play today because they're upset about the 15-second Jacob Blake video that they saw, which would have gotten even worse if, as more details came out. You know how the Jacob Blake story just kind of vanished when people realized, wait a minute, the reason why police there was because this guy was wanted for felony sexual assault and a black woman was terrified of him and called the police to come provide safety for her. And when they got there, Jacob Blake refused to comply with police officer instructions. He was tased and refused to submit. He refused to allow himself to be arrested for felony sexual assault. He was trespassing, and he walked around a car, opened a door, and grabbed a knife, and that was why he was shot. And all those details came out, and almost no one's talking about Jacob Blake anymore. The whole story vanished. But if players had not come out for a game and there had been fans present, I think they would have booed like crazy. And that's the right of fans. Fans have a right to point out that they disagree with your turning a sporting event into a social statement. So if I'm Roger Goodell today, I am ecstatic. I thought that this went as well as possible, given all the noise, given all the storm. I think I'm correct in this. President of the United States hasn't weighed in. It hasn't turned into a larger cultural issue. And on the field, I thought the play was really good. Now, the Chiefs are going to be a whale of a problem for a lot of people to deal with in the NFL, because I told you this the night after the draft, the morning after the draft, and we came on this show, I said I loved the Clyde Edwards-Helaire draft pick. that I thought he fit the Chiefs perfectly. Small running back who could hide behind that offensive line. Great both in the passing game and in the rushing game. He's going to make the play-action threats from Patrick Mahomes for Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and everybody else that they have on that offense that much more difficult to cover. And he is going to be a tremendous asset to what they do on the offensive side of the ball. And already we're seeing it pay off. Last night, he was already a big part of the overall offensive performance. He went for over 130 rushing yards and a rush touchdown in his NFL debut. He's the youngest player in NFL history to pull that off at 21 years old, 152 days. So it wasn't just that he made his debut. It was that he made his debut better than any young running back in the history of the NFL. A couple of other thoughts about the game itself. Texans are going to miss DeAndre Hopkins in a big way. I know they tried to make it sound like, we were ready to move on from DeAndre Hopkins. We made that trade, and Johnson played well for them at running back last night. But let's be honest. They had no ability to stretch the field at all. Will Fuller, who typically can make plays stretching the field. DeAndre Hopkins didn't look great throwing any kind of deep balls. And the result of the lack of deep balls, I'm thinking, is because of the lack of respect for big-time playmakers on this Texans offense. I love Deshaun Watson and what he's been able to accomplish since he joined Clemson and I first started watching him. But we really don't know what he's going to be capable of without one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. That was a huge security blanket. The Texans' opening schedule now is absolutely brutal. Absolutely a brutal debut to the season for the Houston Texans. If you look at their first 7 games, there's a decent chance this team is 1-6 or 2-5, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Bill O'Brien going forward. I mean, look, you thought this game was tough. The Ravens come to town for week 2. All right. Then you go on the road against the Steelers if you're a Texans fan. That's going to be tough. Week 3, Ben Roethlisberger will be rolling into shape. The Vikings then come to town, and the Vikings have been very good playing in domes. They're going to be playing in a dome with the Texans. They're going to probably be pretty good again this year if you're a Kirk Cousins fan. I like what I see out of the Vikings. I like the move they've made on the defensive side of the ball. Then you got the Jags, so that's probably a win. So after what is likely to be either 4 straight losses or a 1-3 start, you get the Jags. But then you go on the road against the Titans. I like the Titans' chances against this Texans team without DeAndre Hopkins. Then you get the Packers, obviously 13-3 team last year. So I think there's a pretty good chance that coming out of the first 7 games of the season, the Texans are 2-5 or 1-6. And you don't recover from 2-5 or 1-6 typically if you are an NFL team. I know the Texans have had a history of getting on win streaks even after losing a bunch of games. And the second half of the season gets much easier for the Texans going forward than effectively the first half. But I don't think the Texans are going to be in a position at the midway point of the season where you feel like, hey, this is a team that has a strong chance to be able to make the postseason. Let me tell you this too. I thought this was an important statement about the necessity of a preseason not being very high. This game didn't feel. I thought there would be, look, the overhit, the average person got 53 or 53.5. The overhit with that late field goal, so there were a bunch of points scored. I thought a lot of points would be scored in this game. And I thought a big reason why would be missed tackles because NFL teams hadn't been able to have preseason games. I thought their defenses would be behind where their offenses were. We didn't see that. In fact, the defenses actually performed at, I thought, a pretty high level. I mean, even though the Texans gave up 34 points, I didn't think their defense was awful. And as a result, I'm left wondering, what's the actual benefit of the preseason? Now, I've argued for a long time that preseason football is unnecessary because in college football, all the kids come out and play in week 1 without dress rehearsals. And we got kids who are coming straight from high school and suddenly they're playing major college football. A lot of these NFL guys with the mini camps and everything else stay in good shape. They don't need preseason football to put themselves into good physical condition as much. It's basically a money grab. But to me, the quality of play we saw last night, and we'll see whether it extends into Sunday, but if the other teams play as well and as efficiently as this, then I really wonder what the need is of preseason football. Guys, there were hardly any penalties last night. I don't know if Roger Goodell said, hey, let's let the focus be football itself. Let's not call any penalties. But that was one of the least penalized games I have ever seen. The focus almost entirely was on football itself, nothing else. And I think that is a huge win for the NFL because the game of football is highly entertaining. We don't need all of the external factors in order for people to care. So I'm going to open up the phone lines, let you guys react, 877-996-6369. Maybe partly also, I'm not troubled at all by the idea of the NFL going forward and quote-unquote woke sports taking over because of what I told you earlier. Week 1, the networks are all going to cover the protesting, the way the games are being played, what the teams are deciding to do to start the season. But once we get to the actual week 2, that's all disappearing. And I think a big reason why players are acting out is because of the attention they're going to get for it. And from the major television networks, that attention basically vanishes come week 2. And I thought we would have a lot of discussion about what happened off the field to start this morning's game, but it didn't happen. And so as a result, I think last night has to be considered a huge win for the NFL. But I'm curious what you guys have to say. We'll open up the phones. We'll take your calls. We got a loaded program as always for you. Shannon Spake will join us in hour 2. And then in the third hour of the program, we're going to go, I think he's going to be in Kansas. Where in the world Joel Klatt is, I'm not sure. But Big 12 football is coming back, and Joel Klatt is calling those games. He's going to join us every single Friday in the final hour of the program to get you ready for college football. So all that is still to come.